Welcome to People More Interesting Than Me, the podcast, where I step back and let fascinating individuals take the spotlight. Join me as I sit down with incredible guests who captivate and inspire, showcasing their stories, experiences, and wisdom that make them truly extraordinary. Tune in for engaging conversations that'll leave you enlightened and entertained. At least I'm entertained. We have a special treat as we're joined by a couple who truly embody the spirit of adventure. They've traded the conventional life for one filled with the rhythm of the ocean, living, working, and exploring the world aboard their sailboat. We'll dive into their unique lifestyle, the challenges and joys of life at sea, and the incredible experiences they've had along the way. So whether you're a seasoned sailor or just dreaming of life on the water, this episode is sure to inspire your next adventure. Enjoy. So today I have Lisa and Phil. The reason I tracked down these guys is I was looking through Instagram because actually my boss is huge into boats. And just like you guys probably know, anyone with boats and your boat, it's kind of like a family member. You're supporting it, it's helping you out time to time. It's like it takes on like a personality. And I saw you guys and what you put into it. Obviously, Phil, you're literally putting your blood and sweat into the boat. And I thought these guys would be the best to interview. So if you guys can kind of explain how you got to, living on your boat and like working out of it, and I guess what got you to this point. And I know you guys are kind of gearing up right now, but what's it usually like?
Sure. And I'll say, Michael, that we're flattered that you found us, especially because the sailing lifestyle it's become really like popularized in YouTube and in like influencer culture, and that's not what we do. And so when you said, "Hey, I want to interview you guys because you look like you do something interesting," I was so we're pleased to tell you a little bit about our story. Sailing for me personally was a theme that started when I was a kid, but later in my adult life, I decided to move aboard a sailboat and bought the boat that we have now like 10 years ago. And it became a full-time lifestyle, that working full-time and not necessarily sailing it all the time, but actually just living aboard and going to work. And that was in Boston, Massachusetts for most of those years. And fast forward 2 years later, I met Lisa, and in my life, I had already done some extensive offshore sailing, both to the Caribbean and back to New England and up and down the east coast of Florida, of the U.S. And she kind of came in, and you can ask her, but I think she kind of figured out right away that sailing and boating was going to be a part of our lifestyle if she wanted to take part in it.
Well, it was pretty clear from the fact that I didn't see Phil step foot onto land until our third date. Living in the ocean and living on a boat was a non-negotiable. And luckily, that works for me. And so, yeah, we met 5 years ago, and the boat has been in the picture for that entire time. And we hatched a plan a couple of years into our relationship. It was actually a really difficult decision whether or not we were going to keep this boat, and put a lot of sweat and tears to restore it, to get it ready for really doing some offshore sailing.
Usually you go on first dates and it's like, oh, I'm not going to be crazy yet. I'll put on this facade that like yours was a sailboat. It was like, oh, I'll only bring that out on the third date to be like, by the way, it comes with a sailboat. Like I come with a sailboat. That was basically what happened on the, third or fourth date.
Oh no, it was the first date, and it was a non-negotiable from the beginning. It was like, here's who I am, here's what I do, and
So you were completely upfront about it. You're basically the person who, if this was kind of like an internet date, you're hugging your sailboat on the first photo.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I literally had just got back to Boston maybe like a week or two before our first date from the Caribbean islands. Yeah, I came out guns blazing, and I had stories to tell. And yeah, I was looking to date, and I met Lisa.
Yeah, and a bunch of, all my friends at the time thought I was crazy for going on a first date with someone I'd never met and getting on their boat. And they were like, you better call us when you're back, because you better come back. But to me, it never felt, I never felt scared. It was never a second guess for me. It felt natural the whole time.
No, that's great. And Lisa, you don't come from like a background of like sailing or boats or anything like that, right?
I come from a background of, I mean, the ocean has been a part of my life and my story since the day I was born. I grew up in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and the ocean has always just been this place that really puts me at ease and makes me feel at home and connected with the people I love and connected with myself and nature. And do have a background of sailing in the summers when I was little. And then sailing also runs in my blood genetically. My great grandfather sailed professionally, and yeah, so I do have a background of sailing actually, but never offshore sailing until I met Phil.
We brought it out in her.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And did you just always have the sailboat? Like, was it inherited or?
Was separating in a marriage that I was in at the time, and
Mm.
so life was in a lot of turmoil actually, and I needed a place to live, and I knew some people that lived on their boats down at the marina, and they were friends of mine, and they were just kind of like, dude, like, why don't you do this? Um, and it started by me like looking for a boat that needed caretaking, and so I did that first, and then started shopping for a boat, and yeah, I mean, because it was my primary, was going to become my primary home. I was able to afford it by also foregoing the cost of, other living accommodations. And
Yeah, because I would
well, yeah,
imagine it comes with some, like benefits, but then there's other stuff like stuff that you need to kind of necessarily have at home. But nowadays, with all like technology, because I know from the person I work with, like there's so many things that you couldn't have done like 10 or 15 years ago.
that's absolutely true. Yeah. The point you're alluding to is that the advancement of technology has made the lifestyle more accessible and it's made it safer. And it's made it more connected. And so at one time, going off and living a life at sea meant really detaching from society. And where now that's not the case. We're both connected via communications and via the internet. And we also have tools that make our lives safer through like navigation electronics and making it easier to get around and know where we are. And then we have things that also make life more comfortable, whether that be air conditioning or fresh drinking water made from a desalinator or more abundant energy via solar panels. And so that actually like really leads into brought me into sailing, which was not just sailing itself and not just the activity of sailing and traveling and experiencing different cultures and being in nature and but also building a home that is this kind of capsule that can do all those things that I just described and sustain ourselves for long periods of time without a lot of other societal inputs. And that's something that Lisa and I think, was like a core value we shared in common, recognized right away when we first met. But in time, we learned that her focus and interest in the human body and in nutrition and in all of her passions was also thinking about energy and autonomy and like living life.
Obviously, you guys living on a boat, you don't really have the same expenditures, or I mean, obviously, there's probably some more expenditures that you guys have to worry about. But I think, like property tax, paying for a new roof. I know that you guys have to like take the boat in and out of the water sometimes, and that can be expensive, obviously, because you have to take outside help. Can you kind of work us through kind of what the benefits and some of the negatives might be?
Sure, yeah, I'll take this one. I would say the benefit financially is when we are cruising and living at anchor. And the cost of living is very low, if we want it to be. And we're not paying for traditional expenses that come along with owning a home on land or a car, or other things that we are all very versed with, right? But on the flip side, a couple of years ago, Phil and I made the decision that we were going to completely restore this boat so we could live on it comfortably and cruise around comfortably. And that is expensive. And so we've seen both sides of the coin of living this sailing lifestyle of being really free and frugal, and also really having to put quite a lot of money down for projects and labor and getting our home ready to be comfortable to live in. And it's funny that you mentioned, oh, you might not have to pay for a new roof on your home. Well, actually, we ripped up all of the decks on this boat these past 2 winters and completely replaced them ourselves. And that was a huge expense, not just in materials, but in time and labor as well.
Yeah, to go sailing is cheap. To prepare to go sailing is very expensive. And there's a lot of different styles of sailing, and there's a lot of different types of boats. And when you actually go out there, and when we say go out there, I mean, longer distance, ocean passages and stuff where you get to more far-flung places. You see all these different styles kind of converge. We all share the same anchorage. You see the 100-foot mega yacht, being with guests that are being, ushered around by crew. And then you see sailors that are just kind of MacGyvered their boats together and live on very little and with comforts that, with very few comforts, that a lot of things that we wouldn't want to go without. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. And we're somewhere in the middle with a boat that we think is well suited for us and is finally fixed up. As we decided, hey, if we hunker down, if we work, earn our salaries, work really hard on the boat in our free time, that's going to put a lot of like cruising credit in the bank so that we have a boat that's not broken that we can hopefully use for another 5+ years.
Yeah, and this boat, it's so unique. I mean, Phil often says it, they don't make them like this anymore. This is a real ocean cruising boat.
Owning a house myself, I know, like, before I even, like, purchased the house, I was a renter. And then when you're renting, it's like, oh man, something's broken. You can just, call someone. And just as you know, with the boat, it's probably even worse because I know, at least from what I've heard, like doing the deck of a boat is crazy difficult because it's not just about putting the floor down. It's about like different beasts, I would imagine, because that takes a lot of thought.
Yeah, we did pretty major composites work. So in non-sailor speak, the deck is built in this sandwich construction, which is a mix of fiberglass and wood, and all the wood components of the deck were completely rotten over the years from water intrusion. And so that did not just like it's not just like tearing the shingles off your roof and putting new ones on. We actually had to take it apart structurally, cut it open, do surgery on it, and then put it all back together with new fiberglass. And that was a major project. They say, don't get into this lifestyle unless you have at least two of three main things. Those three things are money, time, and skills. And if you're missing more than two of those, you gotta you gotta develop at least one of them to get started. And then for us, thankfully, we had a lot of time, and because I'm in the trade, marine trades, we have a lot of skills coming into this. So we renovated our own boat.
And I assume that to earn basically when you're not fixing the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, my specialty is electrical and mechanical systems, specifically air conditioning for boats.
Okay.
And I founded a company something like 8 years ago that specializes in control for boats without having to rely on an onboard generator. And so we call the product battery powered air conditioning. And it just means that we're helping boaters transition to better, more efficient forms of energy usage aboard their boats.
So one big thing, one of the main reasons of seeking you guys out, not just like one person sailing, is you need someone, but in fact that you need to cohabitate on this boat, and you can't really, like, for example, when me and my wife are, like having a disagreement, we kind of, I don't know if you guys do this or other people listening do this, but it's kind of like a what do we call it? It's like we go silently clean. We like clean it out. We don't talk to one another, and we just go to another part of the house and just start cleaning. Like, what do you guys do, kind of to not for fights or anything, but how do you with communications and stuff like that with one another?
It's a great question, Michael. Phil and I have our delicate dance that we do on this boat, and we really pride ourselves in excellent communication between the two of us. And that was something that came through when we met as a core value. And over the years, our communication has improved, and I am only hoping and confident that it will. And so when a conflict comes up, as they do, um, we dive right into it head first together, usually, and talk about it. And I think living in this small space helps us do that. But when we do need to, go silently clean, which I think that's a great tactic, by
Lisa
the
loves to
way.
vacuum.
Yeah, I'm gonna take that away from you. I don't know if that's silent, but
Yeah.
we, the boat, it's all about perspective. It's as big as you want it to be or need it to be, and we have our respective spaces in it. And so we really actually don't find a hard time getting our space and being alone and getting our thoughts together without one another. Especially when we're cruising and living at anchor, you step outside into the cockpit and the entire ocean is your backyard. And so it feels very vast and very big in that sense.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good couples therapy too. Well, let's put it this way. It's either really bad couples therapy or really good couples therapy, depending on which way you're starting off.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I think me and my wife are very good communicators, but you guys probably felt this too. It's like before you moved in together, it was like, like the relationship was amazing. You guys, like, you have your space, but then when you jam two people into one space, you're getting the good and the bad. You guys are on the extreme of that where it's like everything, like you guys are in the good, the bad. Doing the deck, you only have so much space to put stuff. It's kind of like a Tetris,
You're
like
absolutely right.
areas, and you're like,
Yeah. Everything has its spot on the boat, and everything on the boat has a purpose and has utility. And that's also been one of the major transitions into living this lifestyle from living completely on land, is really so intentionally thinking about the stuff and the things that we own and making sure each one really serves us in a way that is valuable.
so if you had to say of the two of you, who is kind of more of the hang oner of things that you kind of have to check? Like when you go somewhere, you're like, oh man, I really like this, but or are you guys both good?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
What do you think?
I think I'm more of the hang-oner, but when I get in the mode of clearing things out, I have no problem doing it.
Yeah, you really
Purge. Yeah.
purging, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
have
that's
a
good.
habit of getting rid of stuff too quickly and then regretting that I got rid of something. I like get in a mode of just like cleaning. I'm like, we just should throw everything away.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I've never heard anyone say that.
Oh
Where
yeah.
it's like I like to keep hardware, like just like any like person working on their maybe boat too. That like, oh, I wish I wouldn't kept these like like these stainless steel screws. They're so hard to find now. It's funny I say that because I know my boss has I think it's an old like crapper, like the ones on the boats that are metallic, like the ones that are very hard to find nowadays. And I was like, why is he keeping this toilet? He could just get a brand new toilet. And he's like, I have to keep it because they don't make these anymore, and like the other ones only last like 10 or 20 years. And I'm like, oh, okay. I guess this is a important toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a really good practice, and I'll speak for myself here, of just practicing not being attached to things that I may have thought were providing me with joy or value or something really important, and practicing attachment through other forms that aren't necessarily materialistic, like connecting with those around me, connecting with nature, more on a spiritual level. And that is something that has really come out for me into moving onto a boat in a small space.
Yeah, that being
Wow.
said, there's stuff we need.
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
you need a knife in the kitchen and you need, oil filters for the engine. Like there's stuff you need, but yeah, figuring out what those things are, like it comes from experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would assume you guys feel this too because growing up, my dad He's a very frugal man, and I sort of took on those aspects as myself. But with like 5 or 6, 7 years of age, I've kind of realized that like you are paying for like that extra 3 hours that it took you to do something. If you would have had the right tool or had spend a little bit extra on that tool, like that's the other thing I would imagine you guys probably value is like the best tools. Like
Mm.
it's not just like having the tool; it's having the tool that can maybe do multiple things. Or, like I would imagine you guys have a borescope that you can kind of look behind stuff instead of like cutting it up.
Mm.
Um, just like it's intentional stuff that you have in the place is very important, but also like I don't know how to phrase it, but quality items on the boat.
Yeah, it's funny. That's also true, and also, I mean, I'm in the trades, so having tools was another, important part of my work. So tools get expensive, but over as the years go by, you start to have a lot of them. Now the trick is figuring out what are the appropriate tools for the boat and which are the ones that we actually don't need. Like, I don't know of how many places I actually need a 9/16 wrench, but it's in the set. And just as an example, like I'm not going to take it out, but like sometimes you think you need all these tools, and it's only by working on your boat you actually find out what are the ones that really matter.
Yeah, but I imagine just like me at that time you needed it, it's not on the boat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the
And there's
best
other
moments.
tools too, like, there are knowledge as tools, and the way we have like way Lisa's really taught me to treat my body, and so that I have enough energy to work on the boat, and to do the things that we love to do, like sailing and pushing ourselves with little sleep sometimes in different situations. Um, Her knowledge has really been a tool for me.
That's great. So, can you guys kind of tell me about your future plans? Because you guys you're still gearing up for your trip in fall. Am I right?
That's right. Yep. We are heading to the Caribbean this fall, and we are going to land there and explore the Caribbean islands. We don't have a particular destination or multiple destinations or route planned yet. And that's part of the magic of it and how we've really crafted our lives over the last couple of years to be able to experience this type of freedom, to really get there and then choose to follow what feels right and where our energy wants to take us. And we both plan to continue to work remotely during that time as well. And I'll continue to run my nutrition business remotely and run my video course that's available and see clients one on one. And Phil will continue to be involved with his business. Um, and, hopefully we'll have this really nice balance of continuing to work and pursue our passions in that area while also exploring new places in the world and cultures and meeting new people and also connecting with existing community that we have in that area, other sailors, and we're really looking forward to that.
No, that's great that you probably guys have thinking about a rough plan. But the good thing, what I've seen with sailing, is the fact that you can. I mean, you can get lost, but it's like slow lost. Like you have time to correct. It's not like like driving or we'll go with driving, but you don't you miss a turn. It's not like you miss a turn. It's really bad if you miss a coordinate. You know what I'm saying? Like you're heading down to I would like Charleston instead of Bermuda. It's something that you can correct for.
Yeah, we've
Um,
done something really wrong if that's the case.
yeah, exactly. So if you guys can both tell me kind of your what you guys are working on and where people can find you to before we lead into our last question.
What are we working on? I'm working on finishing the boat. It still has a handful of systems that need to be ready before we actually go offshore. And I also support my other business, which is called Boat RX. And that's like this really niche business that probably few listeners are, would apply to. But yeah, I do the engineering for our custom projects for new air conditioning systems that go in custom boats.
Yeah. And I'm working on my nutrition business called Hoops Health, and Hoops is my last name. And it's a nutrition business focused on metabolic health. And the offerings that I have are fully remote and asynchronous. I have a online video course that teaches the entire story of metabolic health and focuses on why we eat, when to eat, and what to eat. And it goes into so much more than just food. It really is a deep dive into cellular biology and metabolism and hormone health and intermittent fasting. So people can take that course and feel empowered after 1.5 hours of going through it and actually understand why they want to and need to make choices when it comes to their food and their lifestyle instead of just being on a nutrition or a meal plan for the rest of their lives. And so my hope and goal through my offerings at Hoops Health is to really spread that empowerment and help people find their own sense of freedom through food in a world of health and nutrition that has become very confusing and complex. And I hope that I can just help simplify it for folks to make it easier so they can feel better and feel like themselves every day.
No, that's great. And I feel like from what I've seen, like now I don't want to stand on a soap stand, but what I've seen is people just try to solve everything kind of with like supplements and supplements and supplements when they can really, like take it at their base rather than trying to, autocorrect with supplements and more extreme measures and kind of like how much sleep am I getting or, back to basics.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're exactly right, Michael. I get that question all the time. And my answer is there is no silver bullet for health. There is no magic supplement. There is no one thing that you can take to achieve true energy. It really is about understanding the needs of ourselves and meeting those needs through really basic lifestyle choices and eating real food. And unfortunately, that's become more challenging in today's modern world and in our Western culture.
yeah. And it's hard to tell people that because you've got like 300 people pushing supplements or,
Mhm.
you know, they're trying to make like their money off their, product or,
Right. That's exactly right. And this doesn't mean, supplements are all bad or anything, but it really is just getting to the root of eat real food, move your body in tune with your hormones, and pay attention to your metabolic health signs, and you're gonna feel great. And your inner self is then gonna match your exterior. And I've lived that myself. I've gone through a big health journey for many, many years. And so this is why I'm just so passionate about spreading that story.
yeah. So moving into our final question, we can take it one person at a time because I love to hear everyone's opinion on this question. What is one thing that your parents did that you kind of not necessarily if you guys want to have kids or not? It's more silly like humankind. I hope you guys are pro humankind. Uh, what is something you like to do to pass on to next generation, and what is something new that maybe your parents wouldn't necessarily have done?
Something that my parents exemplified that I hope to continue to pass on is the importance of community and the importance of friendship. And my parents have a wonderful, amazing group of friends that they have made over the years, from high school through today, and they really showed all of us, myself and my two siblings, how important friendship and community is, and the importance of family too. And I hold that very close as a core value and hope to pass that on as I grow older.
Sounds good. And just to finish the question, what would be something that your parents wouldn't necessarily have done?
Hmm.
And
How
this
about
is not to discredit your parents. Obviously, we're in a different, like time. It was a different time back in, like the 80s and 90s and 2000s than it is even today as opposed to like 5 years ago.
I mean, something they wouldn't have done that we would like to do differently now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. You know what? I'm gonna go with on the on the thread of community and staying connected to the people that matter to us and who love us. More asynchronous communication, I think, is available for us right now in the form, just various forms of online communication. And Phil and I are big fans of voice notes, just as an example. And I don't think that was available for my parents. And we think it's a wonderful tool to stay in touch and hear people's voices and yeah, just stay connected to those that we love without always having the time to schedule a phone call or, a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, sounds good. I like that one. I think communication is very underrated nowadays. But
Mm.
okay, what about you, Phil?
I think the greatest thing that I'm grateful for from my parents was how they truly supported me through so many changes in my younger life, specifically like academically and career wise. Like, I think any parent is probably like looking for some kind of like typical narrative to anchor to when they're thinking about their child. Like, oh yeah, they're going to go to college and then they got this great job and now they got the job and then next they're going to buy the house and then they're going to get married and have a kid, etc. And I just was not that way. Um, and I mean, maybe I'm still not that way. I live on a sailboat and want to, all over the place. But I scared them a lot. And I went to three colleges and I never did finish. And I started a number of different businesses. And I, was always times I was down on my luck and I had a lot of different um, partners and relationships and all these moments that I don't know. I guess they could have given up on me or not lent me support, but they didn't. And so, um, despite some of the differences that we have had as, in our relationship, I just know that they love me. And so I'd love to pass on that same level of acceptance
Mm-hmm.
going
No, that's
forward.
great.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, we're not discrediting parents, but obviously something new, not something in their wheelhouse that maybe you'd introduce.
Yeah, I think I would like to introduce more of the concept that your values as a person and your ethics and your morals are yours to decide. And there are a lot of ways to be guided in those things. And in my family, when I was younger, one of those ways was through Christian religion. And that experience made it seem like certain things were inherently bad or inherently wrong. Um, and some of my viewpoints on those as I've grown older have changed. Um, and so I would want to make sure that I pass on just the thought that like, hey, kid of mine, like, here's what I think, but you should, decide what you think as you grow older.
Yeah. I like that just because, growing up, the only thing I've seen that's consistent through your life is change.
Mhm.
And like, if you just base it off that things will change, your opinion will change, your experiences, people as long as you are good at adapting and, to be fair, maybe you keep some stuff closer to the collar, like how you treat people, keeping true to yourself, maybe some stuff like that. But everything else you should just be open to, especially opinions changing. That's what I've seen at least,
Yeah,
and that
definitely.
might even be wrong myself, just to keep it
Mhm.
consistent with change.
Yeah.
But well, thanks again, guys, for doing this. I appreciate you having you guys on the show. I'm glad we could finally make this work. If not, probably one of the most jumpy episodes I've ever had from room to room.
Mhm.
Thank you for making it work, Michael, and thank you for finding us and thinking that we're interesting.
And thank you for putting people's stories out there and just being a podcaster. That clearly must be a passion of yours and storytelling and interviewing and learning about other people's stories. I think that's a really like selfless thing that you do, and it takes effort. And yeah, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, we're always so inspired by people who are doing what is true for them. So thank you
Yeah.
for people
It
and for
it
inspiring
definitely
us.
takes effort. But you know what the awesome thing is? I get to talk to people like you guys and get like new perspective because like it's funny. You're never the same person. I feel like after you talk to someone who has a completely different like
Mhm.
you know like role, environment, opinions. Because if you don't, then you're kind of not an open not that you're not an open person, but you're just like we were saying, your opinions aren't really fluid to outside environments.
Yeah, and yeah, being open-hearted matters, and listening matters. So thanks for being
Yeah.
curious and listening.
Yeah.
If you like this week's episode of People More Interesting Than Me, please follow me on Apple Podcasts so you won't miss out on more episodes like these.